Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Between Sessions with Barry. We have an amazing guest today. I'm so excited. I want to introduce you to David Blatt. He's a former NBA coach and one of the most accomplished basketball coaches in the world. With a career spanning more than 3 decades across 6 countries and the highest level of professional and international basketball. A graduate of Princeton University, he began his journey as a professional player in Israel before transitioning to coaching in 1993. Throughout his career, David led teams to championships across Europe, won the Euro League with, I'm going to mispronounce this, David, you'll have to correct me, Maccabi Tel Aviv,
That's correct.
guided the Russia men's national basketball team to a European championship title and Olympic medal, and reached the NBA Finals as head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Wildly respected for his leadership, team building, and ability to develop winning cultures, David is sought-after speaker on leadership, resilience, high performance, and navigating pressure of the highest levels of competition. So naturally, we thought it'd be amazing to bring David in to talk to you all about his life and all of his accomplishments and how he focuses on leadership and how to help people now that he's a world-renowned speaker with leadership as well. So David, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be able to speak with all of you.
Thank you so much. So David, your path is just so unique. When I read your bio, I was just amazed by everything you've done. Princeton grad, legendary coaching career in Europe, and then the NBA Finals with LeBron and the Cavs. So for therapists listening who work with high achievers, what do most people seem to misunderstand about the mental toll of elite performance?
I think the main issue, as I identify it, is people put the results before the process. I think that holds them back from being able to, on a daily basis, work in a way that almost takes the pressure off and allows them to be focused and even happier by accomplishing small goals every day. I think that's really, really important. You know, I believe that results don't lead, they follow. That's actually a quote that I received from the owner of the Cavaliers. He said, money doesn't lead, it follows. And I changed it a little bit. Dan Gilbert was the gentleman's name. You know, that idea of working and behaving and enjoying on a daily basis and accomplishing things a little bit at a time really reduces a lot of the stress. And stress is a big part of mental health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Breaking it down instead of having that goal at the end that seems probably totally impossible at the time to reach. But if you break it down in these small goals, it makes them much more achievable and seem more realistic, I would guess.
That's right. Very true.
That's amazing. So you've coached under some of the most intense pressure imaginable, I would think. So for you, I don't know, did burnout ever hit? Was there criticism that got loud in your world? And if it did, what kept you grounded? Because I think a lot of therapists try to maybe go outside of the box a little bit or become entrepreneurial and that sort of thing. And there's criticism out there. There's noise everywhere like that. So I just wonder, like, how did you handle it, or how would you advise people handle that, the burnout, the criticism that they might face when they're trying to like step up and achieve big goals in their lives?
Well, you said the right word, noise. And in today's society, and I think everyone is aware of this, but I bring it up because it's so prevalent to our world. There are different sources of noise, particularly with the advent of multimedia, which has just exploded in our world, and we deal with that on a daily basis. People literally live in front of vast amounts of information, and not all that information is good, healthy, even usable. And you have to learn how to neutralize the noise. I've always said, at least in my profession, a competitive profession, where you have this umbrella, incredible umbrella of attention and commentary.
Yeah, that's a great word. Commentary.
Yeah, and critique and narratives. You have to learn to be able to focus on what makes you successful and what helps you to be fulfilled in what you're doing by eliminating that at least as much as possible. It's never totally possible. And staying on point and also staying healthy, because these things can be very damaging to a leader and to, a worker, more so to the leaders because they draw the ire or the attention or the criticism of so many others from seemingly known or unknown sources. And it can impact the way that they think and the way that they lead, and that's not healthy. So knowing how to neutralize that noise or having the ability to simply stay focused and on point. I always used to say, listen, hear everyone, but listen only to a few.
Love that.
It's a key way to be able to manage your day-to-day stress and pressure.
Nice. So having like your own mentors or support system that you can go check in with when the pressure gets too much or you're getting even in your own head around things that might be happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing advice. That's really great advice. So something else that you talk about is identity transitions as a key topic. How did you navigate the shift from like Coach Blatt on the world stage to what came next for you in your career? Because you've changed your career over time. So how do you manage those transitions? Because I think a lot of therapists, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners that are doing this work, we almost have like 5 or 6 different careers throughout our lives. A lot of times we start out like community mental health, and then we might go on to work for a group practice, and then maybe we decide we want to go out on our own and have it like a solo thing, and then maybe we want to run our own group practice or totally pivot and be an AI tech consultant or something. It can change so much. So I just wonder, like, these transitions, how do you help coach people through that?
That's an interesting question. Personally, and I'll take it from my standpoint, I went through 3 major career changes in my lifetime. I started after college. I started as a professional player, professional athlete, which has a slew of different challenges, both physically and mentally and emotionally, that go along with that. Generally, the career of a professional athlete is limited. You can't do it forever. And hopefully you've been smart enough to prepare for the next phase in your life, which comes either quickly or after a longer period of time, because you are not the only one that decides how long you're going to have the ability to do that. And then I moved into coaching, where I used my knowledge that I garnered from the sport that I dealt with to help me develop philosophies and gave me the knowledge and the connection to other people that I needed to become a coach. But it is a totally different world. And I think, people don't quite understand that, that transition was major. I still remember even myself when I finished my career due to an injury. It was sudden. I wasn't really mentally prepared for that. And I found myself at career's end. And I had to very quickly transition into something else. Ultimately, I became a coach, which really wasn't in my plan, so to speak, life plan.
Yeah.
And circumstances were such where somebody asked me and said, hey, you just finished plan. Why don't you come and help us as an assistant coach? And I thought, well, in the meantime, it's something that I could do. And I stepped into a team that was kind of in trouble. And I was coaching a group of people, or leading a group of people that I used to play with. So we were
Oh, wow.
cohorts, so to speak. We were teammates. And suddenly I have to lead them in a different way. As a player, I was a leader, but coaching, particularly at the professional or any level, requires a different kind of approach with a whole subset of challenges. And when I came into that position, suddenly, after only a few months of being an assistant coach, which is also a totally different world from being a head coach, I found that my ability to communicate and my ability to lead by example was very helpful. But when I look back at it, even though we won 14 games in a row, and that's ultimately what gave me the confidence to stay in the profession. It
Wow.
gave me the enthusiasm and the excitement that I guess I was looking for after having played professionally. I look back and I really knew nothing about the profession. I mean, I was like just a new kid on the block, both in terms of my planning and preparation and so many different elements that go into the coaching profession. But just having the ability to work with people and to set the example and to communicate helped me to lead in a way that they would follow me. And over time, what I did, and I think this is critical in anyone's profession, particularly the good people that I'm talking to, is you got to learn. The first thing in leadership or in coaching, and I equate the two quite clearly. The first thing is you got to know the material. I mean, you got to know what you're talking about. You have to study the
Yeah.
profession. You know, the second thing is you have to have the ability to teach or lead. That's such a key element that goes into that profession. Then you have to develop a philosophy. How do you want to go about things?
Hmm.
And it's not the same for everyone. And for me, there were two very distinct tracks, so to speak, that you could follow as a coach or a leader. You could be a system coach or leader. In other words, you have a certain way of doing things, and you take that anywhere you go, in any environment that you are, with any people.
Hmm.
And the second is to be a personnel coach or leader. In other words, you recognize who you have on your team, in your work group, or in your team group, and you modify and adapt your style and philosophy according to the people that you're working with. And I can't tell you which of those two is more correct, and I wouldn't. That would be, I think, unfair. Personally, I was more of a personnel coach. In a restaurant I work, you don't always choose your own staff or your own players.
Hmm.
In some cases, you do, but when you don't have that ability, you have to be adaptable. You have to be open. You have to be quick on your feet. You have to be willing to communicate in a way that people will still follow you and want to follow you. Those are things that you develop. I want to finish that.
Hmm.
Having a philosophy, based on either system or personnel. The next thing is, and I mentioned this, is you have to be very adaptable. In the competitive world, you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to, without losing your way, you have to be able to veer left and right
Yeah.
sometimes, or even go back sometimes in order to go forward. So you have to be adaptable and not feel like there's only one way. It's not to say you should be changing all the time, but you got to be willing to change course if necessary. And
Yeah.
finally, a key to leadership or coaching, and I think that, again, this is true in any profession, and this might be the most important thing.
Hmm.
You have to be a human being. You have to have a sense of ethos and pathos to be able to communicate with people, to be able to enter not only their head, but their heart, and value the people that you're working with and give them value so that they have the desire to work with you, to follow you, and they have the sense that what they are doing helps others at the same time that they're trying to help themselves. And in today's world and society, unfortunately, is a little bit lost. People are always thinking, how do I get ahead?
Yeah.
Which is okay, but it's not everything. You have to care about your people. You have to value your people because that helps you to be fulfilled as well as them. And I think that really goes a long way in terms of how you work with your team, how you work with your people, and how you live in general.
Yeah.
Respect and value and communication and caring. It works in any world.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that juxtaposition of all those things together that make a great leader.
Sure.
And probably you could take any team and transform it into something amazing if you're coming at it with that approach that you just talked about.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Ideally.
Well, see, there are always circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may have the right approach, in the right way. And it still may not work, which would lead us, I think, naturally to the next subject, and that's dealing with disappointment, dealing with failure, dealing with lack of success, because that's part of it. Good people, not everything works, again, particularly in the competitive environment, because there's the other guy too. You're competing with other people who might be very good at what they do, or other companies or work groups that know a better way or have a better hold on what's happening or have more resources than you do. So you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to run into stop signs. You're going to run into disappointments. A big part of leadership is not to be stopped by that. You recognize where perhaps you haven't succeeded. You probably learn more from failure than you do from success. And you have to use that as part of your makeup as a winner. Hey, didn't go this time. I used to use a personal, internal quote, and I would share it with my people, with my staff, when we were dealing with failure or lack of success. And I would always say, after a game that we didn't win, I used to ask my guys, did we deserve to win? Did we deserve it? Did we do everything that we possibly could in order to be successful? If not, okay, let's ask 3 questions. What was the problem? Why did it happen? And how do we fix it? So we would focus on those things, not on the disappointment of not being successful. More motivated and more excited and more happy to fight the next battle, to take the next step based on understanding, again, what the problem was and understanding why we didn't succeed, and then focusing on being better and on fixing that. And that's a great way to deal with pressure. It's a great way to deal with the noise, because you're not listening to all the noise or all the stuff around you criticizing you. You're focusing on what needs to be done, not on all the commentary.
And that sounds like there's this development that comes with the leader where you're like building trust with your team, but you're also holding them accountable in a way, like using that methodology that you were just talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a great word, accountability. When you hear accountability, you almost think like you have a certain level of expectation that people will take the responsibility to be accountable, because those 2 words are very, very connected. So by taking responsibility, you then can be expected to be accountable for what it is that you do. But you got to start with responsibility and then manage and challenge and ask people to be personally accountable and give value to that. You want to motivate people to be accountable, because there's great value in that, because no longer does it have anything to do with the coach or the leader. It's you yourself. I'm owning the business. I am the master of my own fate. I am a contributor to the overall success by doing what I should do, or by willing to go the extra mile to help the next guy or girl. These are very, very intrinsic elements of teamwork, but also of personal success. When you are responsible, when you are accountable, hold yourself accountable, or even hold your friends and teammates accountable, that develops the framework for ultimately being successful. I think that's just so important and has great value.
Oh, yeah, it makes so much sense. So that question you pose, like, okay, what do you think we could have done better? Or what was your assessment of what just happened? That kind of opens it up, it sounds like, for the discussion of where can I take responsibility? What can I recognize and acknowledge here, and then hold myself accountable to, by just opening the conversation and letting them come up with the information on their own. And that really, it sounds like a place that you build that's really safe and they can trust you, and you're already coming at them with like, I've got a deep knowledge base of this and a philosophy that you already know. You already know my values and my philosophy. So coming at it like that with an open structure, it sounds like, is what helps build that really successful team. and then they can take accountability naturally, is
Yep.
what I'm hearing.
Be part of it, yes.
Hmm. Amazing. So, therapists or doctors or nurse practitioners that might be listening to this and trying to lead a team or a group practice or that sort of thing, they might have, like you alluded to a little bit, failures or setbacks that come up in the process with their team members or their clinicians, whoever they're managing or leading. Do you have an approach to really rebuilding someone's confidence after maybe something happens on the team or something that they are taking accountability for? Like how do you build them back up as a leader to help them stay strong and continue to be part of the team and for you all to move forward and still be successful?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a couple of ways, at least as I saw it or see it. And I didn't finish in our first question was
Oh, yeah.
my different phases in my career from being a professional player to being a professional coach. I myself came down with a challenging condition, physical condition. I have MS and no longer am able to work in my profession, which I did for 30 years. And suddenly, boom, just like my professional career as a player ended, so did my professional career as a coach. I had to stop. And it wasn't planned, and I certainly didn't want to. But I transitioned into something else where I could still feel that I had what to contribute. I could still feel fulfilled by adding something to other people's lives or by helping to cure problems that perhaps they were confronted with. I became a consultant for teams and for coaches, as well as a lecturer for business leaders, for coaches, etc. And we talk about a lot of different methodologies for living in this world of competitive sport. And not only did I feel fulfilled, but I was able to help others. And this gave me a great sense of worth and value. And dealing with disappointment and dealing with failures or challenges obviously is a very big part of that. And the first thing I always did when talking with an individual or a team that was faced with obstacles or lack of confidence or fear, is I tried to, let me use a popular and not so nice phrase, I tried to dumb it down, really,
Yeah.
really, really, really help them to simplify things.
Hmm.
And that starts with fundamentals,
Hmm.
really focusing on the basic things that you have to have in order to succeed individually and build a basis for team success. That could be, in my world, your ability to shoot or handle a ball or defend or rebound. These are very specific things, but they're contributing factors to the team's success and to your own time that you'll be playing, because you will be a direct producing factor in your, in your environment. And the second thing, of course, is communication. I made it a point when I was coaching and we would do our warm up. I always made it a point to walk around as everybody was sitting and stretching or standing and doing an active warm up. And I would touch everyone, maybe on the shoulder, maybe on the arm, even, in a nice way, a pat on the head. I would ask each one of them a question, whether it was, how you feeling today? Or how's your new baby? Something to qualify and quantify the value of each individual, as a person. And to make that connection of, hey, we're working together here. I care about you. And I want you to feel that. I want you to know that you have support around you. It may be one word. Sometimes it could even be, hey, get ready. It may be sometimes be active. It may be, can I help you with something? Any number of things. But making it a point to break things down and maybe tell them one or two things that they can do to improve their own situation. And, ask them to be responsible for that and hold themselves accountable for doing that, because that's what we need in this team organization. Of course, there's also a lot of messaging about the importance of the team,
Hmm.
which is no longer a popular thing in our world, in our society. Everybody's thinking about themselves, impact their own level of success. But my thing was, always to encourage team success, because team success helps everybody to advance, either to the next step in their contract, the next step in their career, to the next step in developing their reputation. We tried to focus on the team and let the team help them find value and optimism about their own career going forward. If we succeed, team succeeds, we all succeed. That was a big message that I used to try to foster and try to encourage.
Amazing. And that kind of leads me into a question I wanted to ask about that. When you're leading a team, how do you decide if it's like a strategy issue or a cultural issue that's maybe interfering with team cohesion or success? Is there a way to tell the difference? And then what do you do if it's strategy versus culture, or culture versus strategy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When you're building a team, for example, I think there's elements, I don't think, I know I had a very specific philosophy about that, which would help me to answer the question that you answered. You're building a team, that the number one thing is you got to start with character. When you're picking people to work with, or working with people that maybe you deal with on a daily basis, the first thing you're looking for is good character. The second thing is quality. You want to have good people,
Yeah.
not only in terms of their abilities or their talent, but also in terms of how they go about their day-to-day. That's the quality of work, the emphasis and value that we put into, how do we do things? How do we act? How do we encourage? How do we foster togetherness? So you got character, and you got quality, and you got coaching, which of course is, who's the leader here? Who's setting the tone? For me, was always being the first in and the last out, and being an example for my people, so that they knew that I was always there, and I was going to work as hard, if not harder, than anybody, and they could be encouraged by that to want to do the same to the best of their abilities and feel good about it. Then, of course, you have culture. What is the identity of your team? How do you promote that? Are we coming into a locker room situation, and everybody is on their phone in their own world and paying attention to their own individual needs? And I did away with it. I said, no phones in the locker room. You want to use your phone, go out of the locker room. When we're in the locker room, we're a team. We're going to talk to each other.
Nice.
Or we're going to read a book. Or we're going to listen to some music. But I didn't even like that too much, but that's okay. I mean, I understand the world that I live in. But we're going to be looking at one another, and we're going to be communicating and making this world our world as a unit, because there's great strength in that. Of course, competitive spirit. If you're in the world, well, almost any girl, you're competing, and you have to compete. You have to be willing to take the challenge and enjoy it as well. That competitiveness is what motivates you, I think, to be successful. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's good. It's a good thing.
If it's healthy, I guess.
Yeah, if it's healthy, exactly.
Yeah.
You want to do it in a way that you don't want to be ugly or selfish or indifferent to the general success, but they have that good, positive, competitive spirit. When you have all of those things, I think it's a lot easier to expect and to deserve a successful outcome.
Amazing. Such great advice. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could pick your brain all day. So we always like to do sort of like a lightning round or some quick little questions about things that have influenced you too when you were starting out and where you've gotten to where you are now. How did you as a leader, how did you learn to become a leader? Is it like from your own mentors? Was there a book that you would tell everybody to read? How did you develop all of this? Is it learning over time? I'd love to just kind of have your take on that.
See, now you're asking a question I don't know that I can answer.
Yeah,
that
it's a
is
hard one.
that's an incredibly tough,
Yeah.
but good question.
Yeah.
That concept is: are leaders born, or are they developed and educated to be? Yeah. Because the question is so difficult, I'm gonna take the easy route and say it's probably some of both.
Yeah,
You
I would
know,
agree. Yeah, I would totally agree. It's like
I,
over
I
time, you develop it and you have mentors along the way.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I know myself. You ask me personally, from the time I was a little kid, I was one of the leaders. I was very confident and very willing to take on challenges, and also very willing to help others to succeed and to encourage people to work together, which are elements of leadership. But did somebody teach me those things? I'm sure that coaches that I had, mentors that I had over time, helped me by encouraging me to take responsibility and to be accountable for my actions, and to encourage others to do the same, with the idea that that would help the team.
Yeah.
And not every sport and not every business is team oriented, but certain elements of that really transfer over into being successful. Without question, throughout my lifetime, reading and studying and following and finding good mentors and good examples helped me to develop my leadership style, and not to be afraid to talk to others or to learn from others or to be encouraged by others. Never to feel like you know everything. Understanding what you don't know is very, very important, and having the self-awareness and willingness to educate yourself or to be educated, I think, is critical in becoming a better leader. You have to have the willingness to learn. Just hopefully you find the right resources for your learning,
Yeah.
or you're able at least to identify this is good advice, this is bad advice, this is caring, and this is selfish. This is worthy, or this is unworthy. You have to sort of develop over time that ability to discern what's the right way and who are the right people to learn from. But having great mentors, and I had great mentors, is very, very important. And I think that maybe beyond the genetic leadership trait, and I think there is, I believe that there are such things, that willingness to learn and to associate yourself with people that are sending and sharing with you the best of messages, I think that goes a long way in terms of your development as a leader.
Amazing. That's so insightful. Absolutely. So, last question is there one lesson, I'm sure there's a million, but is there one that stands out about just human nature in general that you learned on the court or coaching people on the court that you could share, just that you might have gleaned over time working with so many people at such an elite level?
For me, it was always about understanding that people are different, and being able to identify their hot points, sort of the things that mean something to them in the framework of the overall of the team, having that humanity about you and being able to communicate and to value things that are important to people as individuals, and then hopefully shaping that up with the interests and the goals of the overall. Every person or every athlete, they're individuals, first and foremost. Each one of them may have different motivations and different problems or different strengths. And you sort of have to be able to recognize those things and what's important to each person, and then help them to fit that in with the overall structure of what it is that you're doing. And in today's world, again, I tell you, and the world has changed. You have to recognize that. Things today are very different from 10 years ago, and almost completely different than 20 years ago, due to the explosion of the multimedia, that motivates people in an entirely different way. And he has said that before, what motivates each individual, what's really important to them. So you have to be cognizant of that.
Amazing conversation, David. Thank you so much. And the last thing is just how do people talk to you? How do they work with you? How do they hear you speak on this topic? Because you just have so much knowledge. I think it would help anybody to be able to connect with you.
If they want to reach out to me, you mean, or just generally?
Yeah. I don't know if you do like speaking engagements or
Yeah.
coaching or,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I really love the fact that I'm able to share ideas with people on many different subjects, whether it be leadership or competitive advantages or problem solving or team building or confidence or, almost any subject that help leaders different times and in different places, environments. So I do an awful lot of online speaking, and more than happy to work with any groups that find value in what it is that I have to offer. It's a service that I offer, and happy to help in any way.
That's amazing.
The important thing is, again, and I stress this, I don't think that there's one right way for anything.
Hmm.
There are any number of approaches that people use or can share to help groups and teams and individuals deal with the challenges in the modern world that relate to competitive sports or competitive businesses. But the willingness and the desire to learn from different sources and to use that and to mold that into your own approach, I think is a great way to develop your leadership skills and to develop a framework and a fundamental basis for how you want to go about doing your job to help people. I don't think there's anything more fulfilling in life than helping others to help others.
I
You
love
know,
that. I couldn't
yeah.
agree more. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.